Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration, I think, into something fundamental, reality itself.
Hmm. Not just reality as we see it, but how we actually construct it.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack this quite radical but scientifically supported idea that our nervous system, our perception, even our beliefs and who we hang out with, they aren't just passive observers.
No, they're active players. They're genuinely changing our biology, our physical, measurable reality.
Yeah, it's some mind-bending concept, really. And to guide us, we've pulled together insights from some incredible sources, a real cross-section.
Absolutely. We're talking neuroscientist, physician, psychologist. We'll be drawing on Dr. David Berson for vision and balance, Dr. Konstantina Stankovic on hearing, and tinnitus, which is a huge issue for many.
And then there's Dr. Ellen Langer's work on mindset, which is just, well, revolutionary. Plus Dr. Alberto Villoldo, who bridges shamanic wisdom and biology.
Right, and Dr. Ben Rain on the biology of social connection, or the lack of it. And finally, Dr. David Allison, bringing a really sharp, critical eye to nutrition science.
It's a lot to cover, but we're going to zero in on the most surprising connections, those real aha moments.
Like finding out how, according to Dr. Langer's studies, just changing your belief about exercise can actually change your blood pressure and weight without you doing any more or less exercise.
That's incredible. Or the finding from Dr. Ben Rain's analysis that being socially isolated is literally as bad for your mortality risk as smoking, 15 cigarettes a day?
15 a day. It's staggering. It really shows that the line between, mind and body or mind and molecule is much, much blurrier than we typically assume.
Okay, let's dive right in. Where should we start? Maybe with the basics. How we perceive the world visually.
Good place to start. Let's look at the sensory network, beginning with vision and balance, drawing heavily on Dr. David Berson's research here.
So, sight. We take it for granted, don't we? But Dr. Berson reminds us what we call light is just a tiny slice of the electromagnetic spectrum.
That's right. And our nervous system performs this incredible decoding feat, turning that radiation into the images we see.
We all learn about rods and cones in school, right? Rods for dim light, using rhodopsin.
And the 3 types of cones for color vision, detecting different wavelengths, blue, green, red light frequencies. They paint the picture, essentially.
But Dr. Berson points out something often missed, a 4th type of light sensor.
Yes, exactly. Using a pigment called melanopsin. These sensors are in specific cells, the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, or iPRGCs for short.
iPRGCs, and their job isn't really about seeing, is it?
Not in the sense of forming images, no. Dr. Berson explains their main role is to gauge overall brightness, ambient light levels.
Okay, so they're like a light meter for the brain.
Sort of, yeah. And the signal they send bypasses the main visual processing areas. It goes directly to brain regions controlling non-visual functions.
Like our body clock.
Precisely. The most famous example is regulating melatonin release. Bright light hits these iPRGCs, they signal the brain, melatonin gets suppressed. It helps keep our internal circadian clock aligned with the actual day-night cycle. It's a subconscious but vital link.
Fascinating. Okay, so from seeing the world, let's talk about moving through it. Balance. The vestibular system. Dr. Berson describes it as our internal GPS.
That's a great way to put it. It senses our movement, our orientation in space, even if you can't see anything.
Like when you're in a car, eyes close and you feel it speed up or slow down.
Exactly that sensation. That's your vestibular system detecting linear acceleration or rotation. It's constantly working to keep you upright and oriented.
And the mechanism involves those semicircular canals in the inner ear.
Yes, 3 of them. Oriented beautifully along the 3 main axes of rotation, the nodding, shaking your head, tilting side to side. They're filled with fluid.
And when you move your head, the fluid lags behind.
Due to inertia, yes, it pushes against tiny hair cells, sending signals about the speed and direction of rotation to the brain. It's incredibly sensitive.
And this ties into vision through that reflex, the VOR.
The vestibulocular reflex, one of the body's fastest reflexes. It's your built-in image stabilizer.
How does that work again?
If you turn your head left, the VOR makes your eyes automatically rotate, right by the exact same amount. It keeps the image stable on your retina.
Ah, right. Dr. Berson gave that example. Shake a book, the words blur, hold the book still, shake your head.
And the words stay clear. That's the VOR in action, compensating perfectly.
But what if something goes wrong, like damage to the system? That's where plasticity comes in, right?
Absolutely. And this is where Dr. Berson really emphasizes the brain's adaptability. The cerebellum at the back of the brain is key here.
It's like an error correction system.
Constantly.
Yeah.
It compares the signals coming from the vestibular system with what your eyes are telling it. If there's a mismatch, say, due to damage in one inner ear, making the world seem to tilt or spin.
The cerebellum notices the error signal.
Yes, and it initiates learning. It essentially recalibrates. It learns to adjust the interpretation of the signals from the damaged side, using visual input and feedback from your body's position, sense proprioception to compensate. It finds a new equilibrium. It's a stunning example of neuroplasticity.
This adaptability, this plasticity, it seems to be a core principle. Does it extend to the visual cortex itself? Dr. Berson mentioned a patient's story.
He did. It involves someone who had a stroke affecting a specific part of their visual cortex, the area responsible for conscious sight.
Okay, so their vision was impaired in a way that showed what that brain area normally does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the bigger point Dr. Berson made was about the cortex's potential for reorganization. It's not rigidly fixed for life.
The brain hates unused space, basically.
That's a good way to put it. Dr. Berson highlighted evidence from people who become blind early in life. The part of their cortex that should be processing vision doesn't just shut down.
It gets repurposed.
It does. In highly skilled Braille readers, for instance, fMRI scans show their visual cortex lighting up when they read with their fingers. It's processing tactile information.
Wow, so the visual cortex isn't just for vision, it's more like...
Dr. Berson calls it a general-purpose processing machine. It takes whatever data it can get and tries to make sense of it. It adapts to the input it receives.
That idea, the brain correcting errors, repurposing itself, feels like a perfect lead-in to our next topic. The auditory system and how it adapts, sometimes problematically.
Indeed. Let's shift to sound, guided by Dr. Konstantina Stankovic's research on hearing, noise damage, and tinnitus.
Human hearing is incredible, isn't it? That range, up to 20,000 hertz. Dr. Stankovic points out how vital it is evolutionarily.
Absolutely. Think of animals like bats or moles. They navigate and thrive primarily through sound. It underscores its fundamental importance.
But the system, especially the inner ear, the cochlea, it's incredibly delicate.
Extremely. And Dr. Stankovic introduced this really important concept, hidden hearing loss.
That sounds worrying. What is it exactly?
Well, you know how after a loud concert or event, your hearing might feel muffled for a bit, then it seems to return to normal? That's a temporary threshold shift, or TTS.
Yeah, it happens to a lot of people.
The problem Dr. Stankovic highlights is that even when the main sensory cells, the hair cells, seem okay afterwards, the connections between those cells and the auditory nerve fibers, the synapses, can be permanently damaged.
Ah, so the damage isn't obvious on a standard hearing test right away.
Often not. This synaptic damage, or synaptopathy, can be subtle initially. It might degenerate slowly over years, and standard tests measuring just the threshold of hearing might miss it completely until it's quite advanced.
And this hidden damage can lead to things like tinnitus.
It's strongly linked. Dr. Stankovic explains tinnitus isn't one single thing. It's more of an umbrella term for perceiving sound when there's no external source. Ringing, buzzing, hissing.
But it's not imaginary.
Definitely not. In many cases, even when audiograms look normal, brain imaging shows measurable hyperactivity in the auditory centers of the brain.
So the brain is generating the sound itself.
Effectively, yes. It seems to be a kind of maladaptive plasticity. The brain isn't getting the clear input it expects from the damaged periphery, so parts of the auditory pathway essentially turn up their own gain, becoming overactive and creating this phantom sound.
But if the brain is creating it, maybe the brain can uncreate it. Is there hope for recalibration?
There is. And this is where Dr. Stankovic discusses cochlear implants, or CIs. She calls them the most successful neuroprosthesis we have.
They bypass the damaged parts of the ear, right?
Correct. They directly stimulate the auditory nerve with electrical patterns representing sound. And the results for tinnitus sufferers who also have severe hearing loss are remarkable.
What kind of results?
Dr. Stankovic cites data showing that around 75% of these patients who get a CI experience a significant improvement in their tinnitus, and about 10% find it resolves completely.
Wow. So restoring clearer input helps the brain calm down that hyperactivity.
It strongly suggests that, yes. The brain seems able to recalibrate when the peripheral function is restored or effectively bypassed. It highlights that plasticity again.
Okay, besides implants, are there protective measures? Dr. Stankovic mentioned magnesium.
Yes, there's intriguing research suggesting magnesium might play a protective role against noise-induced hearing loss.
How so?
Studies looking at the cochlea after noise trauma found that magnesium levels change more dramatically than other ions, suggesting it's heavily involved in the cellular response to stress. Adequate intake might bolster the ear's defenses.
No, eat your greens.
Dr. Stankovic definitely advocates for dietary sources, first leafy greens, fish, nuts. She also mentioned magnesium threonate specifically being studied because it seems better at crossing the blood-brain barrier, potentially reaching central auditory pathways too. But she was clear. We need more research on optimal preventive doses.
Okay, that's protective. But she also warned about something common increasing risk. NSAIDs?
Yes, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Oh.
Things like ibuprofen. This was quite a specific finding from her work.
What was the finding?
That regular use defined as twice a week or more is associated with an increased likelihood of developing hearing loss across all age groups.
Twice a week seems quite common for many people.
It does. Interestingly, her research suggested younger people might be slightly more vulnerable to this effect. The good news is that it often seems...
And recognizing this context, this variability, that's what she calls mindfulness. Not meditation, but active noticing.
Exactly. It's about actively paying attention to how things change, to the nuances, rather than relying on rigid categories and labels. When you see possibilities, you have choices. You're not just reacting based on old assumptions.
And this relates directly to stress. She sees stress as a major killer.
She does. But crucially, she argues stress isn't inherent in the event itself. A deadline, a traffic jam, even a major loss. These events are neutral pieces of information.
It's our interpretation that makes it stressful.
Entirely. Our mindful interpretation defines whether we experience it as a catastrophe, a challenge, or maybe just an inconvenience. The label we apply dictates the physiological stress response.
But isn't there a danger of just denial, pretending something awful isn't happening? How did Dr. Langer address that?
That's a critical distinction she makes. Denial is ignoring the facts. Mindfulness, in her framework, is acknowledging the facts but actively searching for alternative interpretations, positive aspects, or elements of control within the situation.
She used her own experience with a house fire, didn't she?
Yes, a major fire destroyed about 80% of her possessions, a potentially devastating event. But she consciously chose not to frame it as a tragedy.
What did she focus on instead?
She focused on the unexpected kindness she received from strangers, waiters, people in the street offering help. She focused on the opportunity to, as she put it, reinvent herself without the clutter of old belongings. She acknowledged the event but reframed its meaning.
So it became an inconvenience, not a life-shattering tragedy, minimizing the stress fallout.
Exactly. She controlled the narrative and therefore controlled the stress response.
This power of belief is so vividly shown in her chambermaid study. Can we walk through that again? It's such a cornerstone.
Absolutely. It's a classic. So Dr. Langer studied hotel chambermaids whose daily work involved a lot of physical activity, cleaning, lifting, walking enough to meet standard exercise recommendations.
But they didn't think of themselves as active.
No. They generally perceived themselves as having sedentary jobs. And their health markers reflected this belief. Higher blood pressure, BMI, body weight than you might expect given their activity levels.
So the intervention wasn't getting them to exercise more.
Not at all. The intervention group was simply educated. They were told, your work is exercise. Making a bed burns this many calories. Vacuuming burns that many. They were shown how their daily work met or exceeded exercise guidelines. The control group got no such information.
And nothing else changed. Same work, same diet.
Nothing else changed behaviorally. Yet the results were profound. The group that was told their work was exercise showed significant objective improvements.
Like what?
Lower blood pressure, lower weight, lower BMI, even improved waist-to-hip ratio, just from changing the belief about their activity.
That's astonishing. It suggests their prior belief was actively harming them, like a nocebo effect.
Precisely. The belief that they were sedentary likely created a low-level chronic stress state, perhaps influencing hormones like cortisol, which counteracted the physical benefits of their work. Changing the belief removed that physiological break.
This idea of focusing on variability, she applies it to chronic illness too.
Yes, with her technique, attention to symptom variability. It directly challenges the identity that comes with a chronic diagnosis, chronic pain, MS, Parkinson's.
Instead of accepting it's always bad, you look for the moments when it's not so bad.
Exactly. You mindfully notice any instance, however small, when this symptom is less severe. And crucially, you ask, why now? What's different about this moment, this context?
And just doing that, actively searching for change, is therapeutic.
Dr. Langer's research suggests it is. Patients who practiced this showed measurable improvements in conditions previously considered fixed. It empowers the patient and leverages the brain's focus on change. It questions the very definition of chronic.
It really undermines the idea of biological certainty.
It does. And one more quick study Dr. Langer mentioned really drives this home, the one with type 2 diabetics and perceived time.
Ah, yes, the clock study.
Their blood sugar levels were influenced not just by the actual time elapsed since eating, but by whether they thought time was passing faster or slower because the clock had been manipulated.
So their expectation, their perception of time directly affected their metabolism.
It appears so. Another layer showing how deeply belief systems can penetrate core physiological processes.
Incredible. Okay, from Dr. Langer's focus on psychological reframing, let's bridge to Dr. Alberto Villoldo. He brings in this element of ancient wisdom integrated with biology, shamanic biology.
Yes, Dr. Villoldo is fascinating. Trained as a medical anthropologist, spent decades living with and learning from Amazonian shamans. He integrates their understanding of the energetic or invisible world with hard science.
And his own health journey was pivotal, wasn't it?
It was. He shared how he contracted very serious parasites in the Amazon. He initially turned to powerful Western drugs.
Did they work?
They killed the parasites, yes. But he described the devastating side effects. They left him feeling like he had a dead liver and a heart full of holes. The cure was almost worse than the disease, toxicologically speaking.
So that pushed him back towards the traditional knowledge.
It did. He began investigating the healing properties of the non-hallucinogenic restorative plants used by the shamans, but with his scientific lens.
And he found a specific biological pathway.
He did. A major breakthrough was identifying many of these sacred plants as potent activators of the NRF2 pathway.
NRF2, what does that do?
NRF2, nuclear factor erythroid 2-related factor 2, is basically the master switch for the body's own antioxidant detoxification and cell defense systems. Dr. Villoldo calls it the premier detox pathway.
So activating it boosts the body's self-healing capacity.
Massively. He explained that compounds known to activate NRF2, like sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts, which he often discusses, can switch on over 1,100 healing-related genes, and simultaneously, they silence around 600 genes associated with disease processes.
And this happens quickly.
Within about 24 hours, he stated. It provides a clear, molecular explanation for the profound healing effects attributed to some of these traditional plant medicines. It connects the shaman's wisdom to cellular biology.
This theme of internal regulation also connects to how he views pain, similar to Dr. Langer's ideas.
Very much so. Dr. Villoldo teaches distinguishing between suffering and pain.
Suffering is the anticipation, the dread.
Yes, the psychological overlay, the story we build around the sensation. Pain, he says, is just the raw physical sensation in the present moment.
And he uses the cold shower as an exercise for this.
It's his go-to recommendation. Notice the dread before you turn the water cold that's suffering. Then experience the intense cold sensation that's pain.
But the key isn't just enduring it.
No, the key is to consciously reframe the pain while you're experiencing it, to label it positively as invigorating, cleansing, a sign of vitality, a natural blessing, as he puts it.
And doing that rewires the brain's response.
That's the claim. By consciously changing the meaning associated with the physical signal, you can retrain the neural networks involved, reducing the suffering component even if the raw sensation remains. It's about mastering the internal response.
Okay, so we've established this incredible power of internal perception, belief, reframing, influencing our very biology. Now we need to look outwards, at our social world. Dr. Ben Rain's work makes it clear this is just as critical.
Absolutely. Dr. Ray brings a neurobiological lens to our social connections, or lack thereof. And the picture he paints is frankly alarming regarding loneliness.
He calls it a health crisis, doesn't he? Rising isolation in many parts of the world.
He does. And he
Yeah.
backs it up with stark data. That statistic we mentioned earlier bears repeating. The mortality risk linked to social isolation is on par with smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
That's just huge. How is that measured?
Through large, long-term population studies. One he cited tracked people for about a decade. Those reporting the lowest levels of social connection, the most isolated, were 50% more likely to die from any cause during that time compared to the most connected.
50%. Why? What's the biological mechanism?
Chronic stress seems to be the main driver. Dr. Ryan explains that from an evolutionary perspective, being isolated was incredibly dangerous. Our brains interpret social isolation as a major threat.
Which triggers the stress response.
Yes, but not acutely. It triggers a persistent, low-grade, chronic stress response. And one of the major downstream effects of chronic stress is chronic inflammation throughout the body.
And inflammation is linked to, well, almost everything bad.
Pretty much. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Dr. Ryan mentioned a particularly striking link with dementia.
What was that?
Among people already diagnosed with dementia, those who are socially isolated experience cognitive decline at twice the speed of those who remain socially engaged.
Twice the speed. That proves social connection isn't just nice to have. It's fundamental for tissue health, for brain health.
It's biologically essential. It's not psychological fluff. It's physiological necessity.
So what's the positive side? The biological antidote to loneliness? Oxytocin.
Oxytocin is key, often called the love hormone or bonding hormone. Dr. Rain confirms its role in social reward, trust, and attachment. Think parent-child bonding, romantic partners.
But it does more than just make us feel connected.
Oh, much more. He highlighted why researchers are calling it nature's medicine. It has widespread physiological benefits.
Such as?
Neuroprotection, helping nerve cells survive. Anti-inflammatory effects, immune system support, and even, surprisingly, support for bone growth. Oxytocin receptors are found on bone cells.
It's like the body rewards us for connecting.
It seems that way. Successful social bonding appears to trigger a cascade of protective, health-promoting effects systemically.
How is oxytocin release triggered? Is it just physical touch? You mentioned a touch study.
Yes, a really clever study.
Okay.
It looked at heterosexual men receiving a massage. The touch itself was standardized, always delivered by the same female researcher.
But the men didn't always know that.
Correct. They were told the massage was being given either by a male researcher or a female researcher.
And their oxytocin levels changed based on who they thought was touching them.
Significantly.
Yeah.
When they believed it was a female researcher, the person they presumably had a greater potential desire to affiliate with in that context, they reported higher oxytocin release and also rated the subjective feeling of the touch as more pleasant.
So it's not just the touch, it's the meaning or the desire associated with the touch. The intention matters.
It strongly suggests that yes, the psychological context, the desire for affiliation, modulates the hormonal response to the physical sensation.
This brings us right to the challenges of the digital age. If context and subtle cues matter so much, what happens online? Dr. Rain's digital empathy deficit.
Exactly. His hypothesis is that online interactions, because they lack the rich nonverbal cues of face-to-face communication, the tone of voice, microexpressions, body language, they might fail to properly engage the brain circuits responsible for empathy.
So when someone is being nasty online,
the perpetrator's brain might not be getting the empathetic feedback signals it normally would in person. They might feel emotionally disconnected from the impact of their words, feeling, as Dr. Rain put it, nothing much.
but the recipient feels the pain.
Oh, yes. The recipient experiences genuine social pain. And brain imaging shows that social pain activates overlapping regions with physical pain. It really hurts, neurologically speaking.
So the dynamic is completely skewed online.
Dangerously so. It makes it much easier, Dr. Rain argues, for people who might be perfectly decent offline to engage in hostile or cruel behavior online. The normal empathetic brakes aren't engaged for the aggressor, while the victim feels the full impact. It creates a toxic environment built on this neurological imbalance.
A sobering thought about our modern interactions. Okay, we've covered perception, mindset, social connection. Let's round this off with Dr. David Allison's rigorous look at nutrition science and how we know what we know.
Yes, Dr. Allison brings a much-needed dose of scientific skepticism and methodological rigor to the often confusing world of nutrition. He starts by challenging some very basic assumptions, like the protein RDA.
The RDA for protein, 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. He thinks that's outdated.
He views it as a historical relic, basically. He argues forcefully that the studies establishing the RDA were designed purely to find the minimum amount needed to prevent deficiency diseases like severe muscle wasting or negative nitrogen balance. Survival, not optimization.
So it's not the target we should aim for if we have modern goals, like building muscle or maintaining it as we age.
Exactly. Dr. Allison suggests that if you look at the aggregate data we have now, the minimum effective dose for goals like optimizing body composition or supporting athletic performance is probably higher.
What kind of range does he suggest?
He points towards something like 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram as a more relevant minimum for active individuals, with potential benefits continuing perhaps up to 2.0 g kilograms or even slightly beyond for some.
And he mentioned the shape of the response curve, monotonic.
Yes, that's a key concept he wanted to get across. Monotonic means that as you increase the dose of protein in this case, the benefit, like muscle protein synthesis, generally keeps increasing, although the rate of increase slows down, diminishing returns.
But it doesn't suddenly turn harmful at higher levels, within reason. Unlike some things where more is definitely worse after a certain point.
Precisely. The curve keeps going up, or at least flattens out, rather than peaking and then dropping sharply into toxicity.
Yeah.
That's the argument for higher protein intakes being generally safe and potentially beneficial for many people's goals, far above the old RDA minimum.
But proving these optimal levels definitively is hard in nutrition science, isn't it? Dr. Allison talked about the challenges with randomized controlled trials, RCTs.
Extremely hard. RCTs are the gold standard for proving cause and effect, but they are incredibly expensive and difficult to run for long periods, especially with diet.
Why are they so expensive?
Primarily, Dr. Allison points to the economics. There's no patent and thus limited profit motive for studying the long-term health effects of eating, say, more broccoli versus less broccoli. Unlike a pharmaceutical company testing a proprietary drug, there's no financial model to support the hundreds of millions of dollars needed for large, multi-year dietary RCTs looking at hard outcomes, like heart attacks or mortality.
So we often rely on weaker forms of evidence.
We often have to rely on observational studies, which can show correlations but struggle to prove causation, or shorter-term trials looking at intermediate markers, not definitive health outcomes.
He also critiqued a common trial design in nutrition, the crossover trial.
Yes, crossover trials are popular because they're statistically efficient. Each person acts as their own control. Subjects get treatment A for a while, then switch to treatment B.
What's the problem with that?
The big limitation Dr. Allison highlighted is the potential for carryover effects. If treatment A has a lasting impact, maybe it changes someone's habits permanently, or causes a long-lasting biological shift, then when they switch to treatment B, they're not truly back at baseline.
So the effects of A are still lingering and influencing the results seen for B.
Exactly. If you can't fully wash out the effects of the first treatment, the comparison becomes confounded, and the conclusions you can draw about B are weakened. It's a significant issue, especially for interventions with psychological or learning components.
This level of scrutiny really applies to the whole debate around ultra-processed foods, UPFs, doesn't it? He was critical of that term.
Very critical. Dr. Allison argued that ultra-processed is often used more as a vague term of condemnation, a demon category, rather than a precise scientific classification with consistent meaning. The definitions vary wildly.
So what should we focus on instead of just processing level?
He boils it down to basic chemistry. His fundamental principle, which he stated very clearly, is the effect of substances in the body depends on their molecular structure, not their ancestry.
Meaning, if a molecule is identical, it doesn't matter if it came from a plant or a lab.
Correct. If vitamin C synthesized in a factory is chemically indistinguishable from vitamin C extracted from an orange, it will have the same biological effect once it's in your body. The origin story is irrelevant to the molecule's function. Structure dictates function.
So rules like shop the periphery of the supermarket are just shortcuts.
Dr. Allison calls them useful heuristics, rules of thumb. They often work in practice because foods on the periphery tend to be less energy-dense, less processed, maybe higher in fiber, than many packaged goods in the center aisles.
So the heuristic helps you make generally healthier choices.
Yes, it correlates with healthier eating patterns. But Dr. Allison stresses, the heuristic itself tells you nothing about the actual causal mechanism. It doesn't prove that processing per se is the problem, rather than, say, the specific combination of fat, sugar, salt, and low fiber often found in those processed foods. It's a practical guide, not a biological explanation.
That's a really important distinction, focusing on the molecules and mechanisms, not just the labels.
Precisely. Rigorous thinking about what we actually know versus what we assume.
What an incredible tour. We've gone from the mechanics of seeing light with Dr. Berson's IPRGCs to the plasticity of the auditory system with Dr. Stankovic.
To the profound power of mindset and belief with Dr. Langer, changing actual physiology.
Integrating ancient wisdom and molecular biology with Dr. Veludo's NRF2 pathways.
Understanding the deep biological impact of social connection, or its absence, from Dr. Rain's work.
And ending with Dr. Allison's call for rigor in how we interpret nutritional science.
The common thread seems undeniable, doesn't it? Our biology isn't some fixed, predetermined destiny. It's this dynamic system, constantly interacting with and being shaped by Our perceptions, our beliefs, our social world, and yes, the molecules we consume.
We have this remarkable, measurable capacity to influence our own outcomes, our brain function, metabolism, resilience. It's all far more malleable than we often think. It's like our biology is listening, waiting for instructions from our conscious and unconscious mind and our environment.
It really is. Which leads perfectly into a final thought, connecting Dr. Langer and Dr. Velodo. Dr. Langer often points out that when a doctor tells you your condition is chronic,
It doesn't necessarily mean it's permanently unchangeable in your body.
exactly, it just means that currently medical science hasn't found an effective way to change it. It's a statement about the limits of current knowledge, not necessarily about the limits of your biology's potential.
That's a powerful reframe in itself, because internalizing that label, I am chronically ill, I am lonely, this pain is permanent, can become, as Dr. Langer's work shows, a self-fulfilling prophecy. It can reinforce the very state we wish to escape.
It can physiologically inhibit the potential for change.
Right.
So the challenge we leave you with is this. What possibilities might open up if you consciously resist identifying solely with the limitation, with the label of being a victim of your circumstances?
What if instead you embrace the conscious effort Dr. Langer and Dr. Velodo advocate for, actively seeking out variability in your symptoms, noticing the moments of relief, however small, actively seeking the social connections Dr. Rain proves are so vital, consciously reframing challenges.
It's not about denying reality. It's about actively engaging with your own potential for adaptation and change. It's like a mindful rebellion against biological determinism. Find the variability, nurture the connection, keep exploring the science that confirms just how malleable you really are.